Hey guys! I'm feeling very Christmassy in my green sweater and my red lip. Welcome to Vlogmas. We are doing 12 days of Vlogmas here on my channel this year, 12 videos in a row for the first 12 days of December. For today's video, we are going to be revisiting one of last year's Vlogmas videos, which was my Best of 2021, all of the best makeup of the year. These were the products that I said really defined the year 2021 for me. Some of them were products that I discovered in 2021, or they're just maybe things I rediscovered that I really fell in love with that year. And it's a long list, so let's just get on into it, not waste any time, because we have a lot to talk about today. So getting started with the foundations. I had 3 favorite foundations last year, and I do remember 2021 was a good foundation year. I remember going into the year not really having very many favorite foundations, or I was feeling kind of like just meh about foundation altogether, and I did discover 3 favorites, all of which I still like, but one of these I do feel like I have replaced. So we'll start with that one. This is the Urban Decay Stay Naked Hydromaniac foundation. This is actually the foundation that I'm using in my project pan right now, and I do really like this foundation still. It's a nice light to medium coverage, really dewy, hydrating foundation, and it's a good one, but I just think as I've tried other formulas, and specifically one other formula that is cheaper than this, that I actually like better, I don't really think that I would repurchase this once I run out of it, even though I do enjoy it. The LYS Triple Fix Serum Foundation, to me, fills the same purpose in my collection as the Urban Decay one, but it is like $10 cheaper. The packaging is way nicer and just more luxe feeling, although it is much bulkier, as you can see, but really beautiful, just like frosted glass, looks very high-end. Similar amount of coverage, similar kind of hydrating, skin-like finish, but I actually think the LYS one has even more of like a smoothing effect to my skin, and I actually think I like it ever so slightly more than the Urban Decay one. So this one I still like, but now that I've tried other formulas, I think you can get a very similar effect or even a better effect for a lower price point. Another high-end foundation favorite from last year was the Ilia Super Serum Skin Tint. I did discover this for the first time last year, and I liked it so much that I used it up and repurchased it, and this is actually the second bottle of this that I've had, so I think it goes without saying I still love this. I feel like I might even love this more now than I did then, especially this summer, like in 2022, I really fell back in love with this, and I was wearing this almost every single day. It's just the easiest formula to work with ever. It never looks bad, it never looks cakey, it's a very liquidy formula. And for a skin tint, it actually has really good coverage. I would say light but buildable to medium coverage. You can apply multiple layers of this, and I've never had it look heavy on my skin. It is very glowy, but you can set it down with powder, and it doesn't look like you're wearing foundation. So that's what I love so much about this. It is the most expensive foundation that I own. It retails for $48, but I was able to get it for $38 earlier this year when it went on sale. So even though it is so expensive, it's just such a unique and special formula to me that I think this will always be in my rotation, unless I happen to find something cheaper that I like just as much, but so far that hasn't happened. And then the third foundation favorite of last year was a drugstore one. This is the ColourPop Pretty Fresh foundation, and this is absolutely still one of my holy grail top favorite foundations. Really reminds me a lot of the Physicians Formula Healthy foundation that I loved for years, but this I actually think wears a little bit better than the Physicians Formula one. By the end of the day, it looks just a little bit fresher than I remember that one looking. This I feel like is a great all-purpose foundation. It has good medium coverage, more of a satin finish, not overly dewy but not matte, just a really good middle of the road, works for every occasion foundation, and I absolutely love it. Nothing has changed about my opinion on this one or the Ilia one, but like I said, the Urban Decay one has been replaced. I had one concealer favorite last year, and it was the e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer. I am almost done with this tube, and now that I'm almost done with it, I don't think I would repurchase it. Maybe at some point I would, but I have found a few concealers that I like better. The Kosas one, the Urban Decay Stay Naked one. I'm even liking although it has lower coverage, the NYX Bear With Me concealer I also am really enjoying right now. So I think my preferences have just shifted a little bit. This is, even though it is a hydrating formula, it's a little bit thicker and heavier than what I'm enjoying these days. I really appreciate more of a thin, lightweight concealer formula. Even if it has a little bit less coverage, I just prefer the look of those. So I still think this is a really good option. A little goes a long way, but I think I would rather maybe try something different instead of repurchasing this, you know? Getting into some cheek favorites now. Last year I mentioned the Soul Body Bronzing Balm. I have the shade Fair. I still think this is a fantastic formula, but I feel like this year I just wasn't really wearing such warm bronzers like this as much. I really started to get into just more subtle bronzers this year. I still like this tone of bronzer. Really in the summertime is when I get the most use out of this, but you know, I should roll this into my everyday makeup drawer soon. I feel like for some reason I always forget that I have this, even though it's one of my favorites. So I guess I wouldn't say that it's like my favorite bronzer anymore. It's one of my favorite cream bronzer formulas that I've tried, but I am just into something a little bit more subtle and a little more neutral than this shade. Last year, another favorite was the BH Cosmetics Belgian Waffle Palette. Really last year, I think the whole brand of BH Cosmetics was a favorite because last year was the year that I finally tried BH for the first time and I fell in love, and then sadly they went bankrupt and then they got bought by Makeup Revolution. It sounds like they are keeping their old formula though, so that's good news, but I haven't tried anything from BH since that acquisition happened. They do still sell this palette, I'm pretty certain. So this is a bronzer and highlight palette. I do still love this. The bronzers are super smooth and buttery. I really especially like this really light bronzer shade because it just, you can never go overboard with it. It always looks very natural on my skin. Actually reminds me a lot of the Charlotte Tilbury airbrush bronzer that I love. And then two deeper bronzer shades that I also use, or sometimes I'll mix them together. And the highlighter formula in here is one of the best. Very smooth, very intense highlighters though. Like they remind me a lot of the Becca highlighters and that sort of formula. The only thing I've noticed about this palette the more I've used it is that these two lighter highlighters and these two more medium bronzers are really close. Like they're really similar shades. I almost feel like this could have just been a smaller palette. I also just forget to reach for my face palettes. I'm more of a single cheek product type of person. The other downside to a face palette is that there's usually one shade that just doesn't work for your skin tone. For me, it's this maple highlighter down here. Just, you know, obviously way too dark for me to use as a highlighter. I could use it for other things, but I never do. So there are some downsides to it, but I do still like it a lot, and I, you know, enjoy using it when I do use it. Another face palette, this is from Aether Beauty. It's their Amber Cheek Palette. So this has two blushes and a highlighter. I still love this. I don't feel like I used it as much this year as I did last year, probably for the same reasons. I often overlook any face palette type of thing. These are actually the only two face palettes that I have in my collection, but I'm always forgetting to use them. I love these coral blushes in here. They're so lively looking on the cheeks, and the highlighter in here is really nice as well. I think they discontinued this though. There might be one website where you can still get it. I still like it, but similar to the BH palette, I don't feel like I used it as much this year to where I could say, yes, it's still one of my top favorite products. The LYS Satin Matte Cream Blush in the shade Kindness was another favorite last year. I still highly recommend these blushes. Kind of like the cream bronzer. I really love this formula. I think it's fantastic. I actually think the formulas of both of these are kind of similar. They're both kind of a cream to powder cream formula where they do sort of set to a matte finish. They're not going to stay really tacky on your skin, so I really like that. I just feel like this particular shade hasn't been one of my go-to types of colors to wear as a blush this year, except for maybe in the spring. But this year I've really just been more into neutral and like nude blushes. More like soft rosy blushes have been my jam this year. And really peachy corally blushes like this, I just haven't been quite as drawn to. I'm sure that will change with the seasons. One awesome thing I discovered about this formula recently though is that you can layer this over powder, like after you've powdered your face. So that is definitely something special about this formula, and I still think it's a great cream blush, and if you find a shade in it that you really like, I do still highly recommend it. A highlighter favorite from last year, this was such a like wild card product to me. It's just something that came to me in PR and I fell in love with it. This is the Estate Baked Highlighter in the shade Lit. Really a hidden gem. A lot of you have told me that you got this in a subscription box and also loved it, but I don't think many people have heard of it outside of that. Even though it's a baked formula, I think a lot of times baked products get a bad rap for just being like dry or chalky, but this is very smooth, feels like any other powder highlighter. I just rubbed my finger across there so many times. But hey, you'll get a good look at the swatch. Yeah, that's a really high concentration of the highlighter, but you can see it's just very, very smooth, very reflective. It's not, you know, glittery or anything, just gives your skin like a really beautiful pearly glow. So yeah, I still love this. I still would say it's one of my favorite powder highlighters that I own. The only thing is the packaging feels so cheap. Like it feels like dollar store makeup, and this isn't that cheap compared to other brands. Like I think it's around the same price point as, it might even be more expensive than a brand like ColourPop, so the packaging feels a lot cheaper than ColourPop though. Here's another one that I feel like I fell even more in love with this year, and this is the Nobliss Skin Glazing Highlighter in Privilege. So I recently put this into my everyday makeup drawer, and I've been reminded of what I love about it. I've described this in the past as a more subtle highlighter, which I think it is, but you can also still get a really strong, like really glowy look with this. But the amazing thing about this is that it doesn't look like you're wearing highlighter. And the thing I most recently discovered about this is that you can apply this to the tip of your nose and it's not going to look like other powder highlighters do on the tip of the nose. It doesn't look like you're wearing highlighter on your nose. It just gives it that really, really smooth glass skin sort of appearance. You can also dust this on your forehead. Other highlighters I can't put anywhere near my forehead, or it just looks too weird up there, you know? But this you could lightly dust up there and it just looks beautiful. So the longer I've had this, the more I love it and just really have come to appreciate what it can do. Okay, so last year I went a little nuts in the palette category. I had 7 eyeshadow palettes in my 2021 favorites. So I don't know what I was thinking. This year there will not be that many eyeshadow palette favorites because I haven't been as excited about palettes this year as I was in the past. I still love them, but I've only bought 2 eyeshadow palettes this year, whereas last year I think I bought way more than that. So anyway, like I said before, last year was the year of BH Cosmetics for me. Even though they were old news last year, they were news to me. And I mentioned all 3 of my BH Cosmetics palettes in my Best of the Year video. Summer in Saint-Tropez, Lost in Los Angeles, and Mimosa. All 3 of these are very colorful palettes. I would still say, and like I'm pretty sure I said last year, Summer in Saint-Tropez is my top favorite of the 3. Heidi's meowing in the hallway. I still think this is an amazing palette. I definitely didn't use it as much this year as I did in 2021. I used it so much specifically last summer, to the point where I hit pan on this shade, and I did a ton of looks with it. I do have a plan to start getting more use out of my palettes by just incorporating one palette into my project pan at all times. So I do plan to put this into my project pan in 2023 at some point, but I feel the exact same way as I did last year about the formula and everything. Lost in Los Angeles, I'd have to say, is my least favorite of the 3, and I've shared this before. It's just, I don't know, I don't find myself using it very often. I think the color story is just like a little bit too random feeling for me. I like the colors, I like each individual color in here, but there's something about the layout and the arrangement of the shades and just this particular combination of shades that for some reason just confuses me, and I don't know why. But I still like to have this as my one-stop shop for any like light colorful shade pastels. So I don't see myself getting rid of this, but at the same time I don't think I would consider this one of my favorite palettes, even though the formula is fantastic. Same formula as the other palettes from them that I have. Mimosa I still love. I did a 1 week 1 palette with this in the summer this year that I can link for you if you want to see some looks with it. It really showed me just how much you can do with this palette. It looks like kind of a one-trick pony, like it looks like it's, you know, all pinks and corals, but you can actually do a lot with this. You can even get a really neutral, subtle look with this, so I still think this palette is great. Very specific color story. Obviously don't recommend it unless you really like bright pinks and corals, but it's a lot of fun to have. Formula-wise, these are still some of my favorites in my collection, but I wouldn't say these were my most reached for palettes in 2022. Another favorite from last year was the Flower Jungle Lights palette. I still love this. I still highly recommend it. This formula is one of the best at the drugstore, and I just think Flower Beauty is so underrated. Like, I have enjoyed almost everything that I've tried from them. I love all of these colors. I think these are so fun, and they're just some of the most foiled metallic shades in my collection. I would say though, this year, one of the two palettes that I bought this year was the Flower Desert Lights palette, and I think I like that one just a little bit more than this one, just because those are like my kind of shades, those really soft, rosy, like rose gold type of colors. Those are some of my favorite shades to wear, so that one I did use more than this one this year, but this one still has my heart too. Last year I also mentioned one of my long-standing favorites, the ABH Norvina palette. Of course, I still love it. This has been my Pan That palette this year, and as you can see, I've made quite a bit of progress on it. I still think this is one of my favorite palettes in my collection, even if it wasn't in my Project Pan and I hadn't been using it so much this year. I think it would still be one of my favorites. I just love the color story. I love how romantic and ethereal it is. And the shimmers in here are just out of this world, so still love it. Still one of the best, I think, in my collection. Whew, a lot of palettes, okay? I guess I just had a lot of favorites last year. But finally, the Aether Beauty Rose Quartz palette, which unfortunately this version is discontinued, but they do have a new version of it. I would still consider this one of my top favorite palettes in my collection, even though it is discontinued. I just think it has a unique formula. The matte formula in here is probably my all-time favorite matte eyeshadow formula. It is just the most blendable, like ridiculously easy to work with formula ever. The shimmers are also stunning. The middle shimmers, you do want to layer those over a glitter primer to get like maximum intensity out of them, but they're so beautiful over a glitter primer that to me it's, you know, totally worth it. I still consider this a favorite. I want to hit some pans in this next year. And I wish they still sold this version because I think it was just perfect the way it was. I wish they hadn't changed it. One that I no longer have that I did declutter in my Moving Declutter series was the Aether Ametrine Quad. Still love the formula of that and everything, but I just realized that the shades were kind of repetitive compared to other shades that I already had in my collection, very rosy shadows that I felt were easily dupable within my collection, so I didn't feel like it was necessary to take that quad with me. Next up, I had quite a few eyeliner favorites. By the way, you will notice there were some categories last year where I didn't have any favorites. Powder we skipped over, and brow products. I think the categories where I didn't have any favorites were face powder, brow products, and mascara. I just didn't have any top favorites in those categories, so I didn't mention any. However, I did have a lot of eyeliner favorites last year. The first ones that I mentioned were the CoverGirl Perfect Point Plus eyeliners. I still have these. All four of the ones that I had last year I still have. I still really like these. What I really like these for is just a very precise application. These are, you have to be careful with these. They are retractable. Well, I guess they're not retractable because that would mean that you can twist them back down. So you do twist these up like a mechanical pencil, but you can't get it to go back down once you've twisted it up. So you really just want to give it like one click and you have enough to apply to both eyes. So you see where the eyeliner comes up. There's a plastic piece in the tip that holds on to the liner, but I just really like how thin the tip of this is. So it's good for like tight lining and really getting in between your top lashes. And I also just like to use these as a regular like upper liner, winged liner. Today I have on the shade Espresso on my upper lash line, and I still use these all the time. I would say that Espresso is my most used, the dark brown, but the other three I have are Gray Khaki, Midnight Blue, and Charcoal, and I love those as well. I still would say these are some of my most used eyeliners. And then I also mentioned two of the Urban Decay 24/7 eyeliners. These were the shades Roxy and Overdrive. Overdrive especially I would not shut up about towards like the end of last year because it's just such a great holiday green shade. I think I'm going to be getting a lot of use out of this holiday season as well. I still like both of these. I don't feel like I have used them as much this year as I did last year, which has been the same story for a lot of these products. I like the Urban Decay liners if there's a specific color that you're looking for that you can't find from a drugstore brand, but NYX makes so many great eyeliners. The Epic Wear liner sticks I think are better than these. They have even better staying power, and they come in a ton of shades. You know, some shades that you find in the Urban Decay line you won't find in those, and vice versa. So I don't really recommend buying these unless you can get them on a really good sale, or if there's a color in this formula that you can't find anywhere else. That's what I think these are good for. The BK Beauty brushes were another favorite last year. These are definitely still a favorite. I have so many of these now. I have received these in PR, but I can honestly say, like, if I lost all of my brushes, these would be the first ones I would want to get. I really think if you're wanting to really invest in some high quality brushes, these are the way to go. These are the most professional feeling brushes I've ever owned. I like them better than Sigma. I've said that before. I do have a discount code with them that I can put on the screen if you do want to get some money off. I'm sure they're also having some good sales this holiday season. What really keeps me reaching for these over so many other brushes is that they just have some really great shapes that you don't see all the time. And since last year, they've come out with some new ones. They did extend their core collection, and then they also came out with a collab with Angie Hot and Flashy. And one of my favorites that I discovered this year was the A506 from the Angie set. So this is a concealer brush. It's kind of like a mini version of their 101 foundation brush, you can see. And then they also recently came out with kind of a mid-sized version. That's the 109. All three of these I think are just amazing, but this concealer brush has made me a brush convert for concealer. I used to only ever use a sponge. This one, it's so good. It's the perfect size for getting under the eye. I just love that steep angle that it has. I don't get any streaking with this. That is probably my number one brush from all of their entire line. So those are still a total favorite. I would say, like, when all of my brushes are clean, those are the first ones I start using out of all my brushes because they're next level. Another favorite from last year that I still love is the EcoTools Bio Blender. This is a relatively new one. I love this sponge. It has just the right amount of squishiness to it. And the EcoTools sponges have my favorite shape with like the two flat edges. I like that you can really get into the corner of your eye, and you can really get a sharp, clean line here if you're applying concealer after eyeshadow. And these bio blenders, they say that they're biodegradable, that you can compost them, so just keep in mind that unless you are going to compost these, there's really no reason to get this over any other sponge if you are just going to throw it away. But if you are able to compost, I would say this is a great option. Just make sure that you clean it out before you compost it, just because some of the makeup in there might not technically be biodegradable, but I'm no expert on this stuff. I just think, you know, it seems like a slightly more environmentally friendly option, so that's why I keep going back to it. The only thing about it is that, and I don't really care about this to be honest, but it does tear more quickly than other sponges, probably because it is biodegradable, but I don't feel like that affects the application that I get with it, so doesn't bother me, honestly. Okay, we're getting towards the end. I know this is a long one. Stay with me here. The Mented Peach Lip Pencil. I still think this is a fantastic lip pencil. I remember how much I was using it last year. In fact, I actually don't have a whole lot of this left. I could probably use this up pretty quickly. Really like the perfect consistency for a lip liner. It's not dry and stiff, but it's also not too creamy, so it stays in place well. And the shade is just a great, like, all-purpose peach color. Works well with a lot of different lipstick shades that I have. This year, I fell head over heels for the Kokie lip liners, though. And those have kind of taken the front seat in my lip liner collection. I'm almost always wearing one of those these days. Those are, like, truly waterproof. They don't move, whereas this is not, but maybe not as much of a favorite as it was last year, but I still think it's great. I had just a few lipsticks that I mentioned last year. The first ones were from e.l.f. These are the Seriously Satin lipsticks, and I specifically mentioned the shades Persimmon and Nectar. I wouldn't say that Persimmon was as much of a favorite this year. I feel like I only used this maybe twice this year, and the one time that I do remember wearing it this year, I don't think I liked the color on myself as much as I did in the past. It's a very orange shade. It's just not the kind of color I wear all the time, but Nectar, on the other hand, I still would say I love it just as much as I did last year. This is a good, slightly deeper nude that I feel like works well on my undertones. Sometimes deeper or like more brownish nudes just don't look very flattering on me, but this one, it has enough warmth and peachiness to it that it still works really well. Yeah, I don't know, there's just something about this shade that I feel like I've never found in another lipstick color. So Nectar is still one of my top favorites in my lipstick drawer. I also have the shade Cream, which I really like for like a center of the lip color. Where are you? This one right here, this one is definitely too light to wear all over my lips, so I do still really recommend these Seriously Satin lipsticks, especially because they're one of the cheapest lipsticks at the drugstore, and it's a good way to try out shades that maybe you're not sure about or that you know you're not going to wear all the time, like in the case of this orange. It's a good way to try out those kinds of colors without spending a whole lot of money. A high-end lipstick favorite from last year was the Urban Decay Vice lipstick in the shade Liar. I have a few shades of this in my collection, but Liar was last year's favorite. I would say this is still my favorite of all of these Vice lipsticks. Another great peachy nude, actually kind of similar to Elf Nectar, but a little bit different. You know, there's a slight difference. I can definitely tell the difference once they're on my lips. This is still one of my favorite nude shades. I remember last year I was pairing this a lot with that Mented Peach lip pencil. Beautiful combo. I need to wear that again sometime soon. I really like this Vice cream formula. They have a cream, a shine, and a matte version of the Vice lipsticks, and I would say the cream is really special because it has a little bit of shine to it, but it feels like it kind of sets into place on your lips and it really stays in place well. I do think the staying power of this is better than other bullet lipsticks that I've tried, but I also have noticed this year I just haven't been wearing true lipsticks as often as I once did. I wear them to film videos and I enjoy them, but really day to day I'm more just reaching for a lip gloss or like a tinted lip balm, something a little bit more easy and comfortable. So I don't know if I'll even have any bullet lipsticks or true lipsticks in my favorites this year that I can think of, but maybe. We'll have to see. My last favorite of 2021 was the Milani Keep It Full Nourishing Lip Plumper in Soft Rose. It's quite a long name. I actually used that up earlier this year. To this day, I would say that's one of my favorite lip glosses of all time. In fact, I really miss it. I know I said I was going to use up some other lip glosses before I repurchase that one. I probably still will. I'm not in a hurry to repurchase it, but I really do want it back in my collection. That lip gloss and really that specific color, Soft Rose, was just like nothing else I've ever tried. It was the perfect My Lips But Better shade. Oh, I just realized I forgot one. My NYX Glitter Primer was another favorite of last year. I still highly recommend this. I think this is great for just taking any shimmer to the next level. If you really want your shimmers to just shine on your lids, just layer a little bit of this underneath. It doesn't take the place of a regular eye primer. I just will put it on like the part of my lid where I'm going to be applying my shimmers. But I kind of got out of the habit of using this year, even though I still think it's great. I think I just got out of the habit of doing that extra step. But I need to just bring this back to the forefront of my drawer here and make sure to actually use it more often because it is such a good product. Also, I've had this same tube for an embarrassing amount of time, but it still works just fine, so I think it's fine to keep using. Okay, those were all of my favorites of 2021. I feel like my 2022 favorites list is going to be a little bit shorter. I really want to pare it down to like the best of the best. Stay tuned for that video, which will be coming towards the end of this month. Anyway, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you have not already. Stay tuned for lots more videos to come in the month of December. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and hopefully I will talk to you again very soon in my next video. Bye.